Hello, 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 and welcome to today's episode of Her Version. This podcast is dedicated to sharing stories of struggle to triumph, a platform that allows individuals to tell their truth in order to inspire and uplift others. For those of you that are new to this podcast and like content like this, make sure you hit that subscribe button, follow, like, and share. I am your host, Sabrina Victoria. Let's jump right in. Thank you for joining us today for this episode of Her Version. And those of you that are already jumping on live, we appreciate it. If you could share this so that other people can see it and view it, we would much be obliged. The Her Version platform is built on storytelling and the understanding that many times our greatest learning experiences come from listening to other people's stories. Today, I'm speaking with an amazing woman named Kristy Haigh. She will be speaking on her journey through anxiety and depression. She is now a yoga teacher who founded her business, DefyingLee Fit, that started out as private yoga lessons, but has grown to an online studio of mindset coaching. Soon to be published author of the book, Becoming a Butterfly. Super, super excited to talk to this lady. Welcome. How are you?
Thank you so much for having me. I am so good. How are you, Sabrina?
I'm doing so good. That's a little bit of a tongue twister. I didn't realize it until it's sitting right in front of me.
I know, right?
Where does that come from? Is Lee your middle name? What's
Lee is my middle name. And many years ago, when I got introduced to yoga mindset, there was this quote that always stuck with me that was learn your limits or know your limits and then defy them. And that just took me to another level through my fitness, through, my anxiety and depression, through kind of all aspects of my life. And it just stuck with me. So it became the name of my business.
I love it. So cool. I love when people create companies or thought processes that stem from something that's like meaningful. So cool.
Yeah, that was one of those things that was like, okay, DefyingLee Fit, how people are like, oh, it's just a fitness, it's all about the body, but it's more than that. It's defying those limits that you set for yourself or that other people have set for you through, like I said, mindset, but also spiritually, physically, through your relationships, through the jobs that you want to bring in, just basically all aspects of life. And it's just been this beautiful mantra that I've taken with me throughout my entire business and building it more and more and more.
So cool. When did you bump into yoga?
So yoga has been this beautiful unraveling of myself. So when I was younger, when I first got that diagnosis, my doctor, and I talk about this a little bit in my book, said, we can put you right on antidepressants and, anti-anxiety pills. And I just felt in my heart, though a lot of people or some people, are really wanting to go that route of medication, it was just not something that I wanted to plan for my journey. So I had this amazing doctor that was like, okay, well, let's find different outlets. He said, we can have counseling. He's like, yoga is really good for stress levels, exercising in general. And I was in university and I just went to a yoga class and I was like, okay, let's see what this is about. And it became so much more than just an exercise for me or stretching my body. It was like this moment of, you get on your mat and it was like this little shield, this little pod where I can just be with my own mind. I can get out of, the craziness that I was kind of talking myself into and just stay there on the mat, focus on the move, focus on the stretches and breathe, which is something that I didn't know how powerful it was. And it just evolved into, the breath work, the meditation that I brought off of the mat and into my everyday life. So it started as something that I had no idea that it was going to evolve in the way that it did so beautifully.
Wow, that is awesome. I know that there's been ups and downs and twists and turns throughout your journey, but I want to ask if you could pick one thing that changed your life from the beginning to where you are now, like a story that pivoted everything. What would that story be? And what did you learn from the story?
Just one? No.
Right?
So this, there's so many beautiful things, but I think one of the best things that I've learned throughout this is when I was going through, this battle of my own design. I picked up a book by Gabby Bernstein, and she talks about this method that's called the choose again method. And I was reading it and I was thinking, this lady is crazy. Like, how can you choose your day? How can you choose your emotions? Like, this doesn't seem like my experience. Am I choosing this? So there was a moment of like, I'm getting offended about what she's talking about. But then I was like, okay, you know what? I'm here to learn, I'm here to grow, and I'm willing to put this into practice. So I did. I put it into play. And it was the most beautiful thing when I put it like to work. I had this call. I was at work. I was working as a receptionist at the time. And this was actually during COVID. This is actually one of the most amazing stories from learning this technique that I found like in my experience. And this lady called me during COVID. We had a whole bunch of lockdowns in the retirement home. They, all the protocols that were going on. And so she was so upset. She was so mad about what we were doing. And she started calling me all the names under the sun. And just like, I was, this horrendous human being. And I took this deep breath. I remember it so vividly. I took this deep breath and I was ready to give it right back to her, right? Because like my anxiety, my defense, like I'm getting all balled up, and I'm like, and then I was like, okay, choose again, choose something else. This isn't serving you. And I just had that moment of like, okay, Gabby Bernstein, let's put this into play. And I chose to come from a place of love. I chose to come from a place of compassion and understanding. And I was like, you know what? Like, I totally understand. What can I do to ease, and I came from this place of this energy that was much lighter. It wasn't heavy. It didn't feel wrong in my body. Like I literally felt like, okay, if you choose this, this is not going to feel good. You're not going to you're going to be stewing about it all night. You're going to be taking it into your weekend. Choose again, choose something else. So I chose this opposite way, and she met me there. And it was this beautiful experience and powerful, so freaking powerful, because when I didn't meet her energy and I decided that I'm going to stay over here, I'm going to stay in the light, and I have the power to do that, blew my mind. I was like, looking back, I was like, did I just do that? I am freaking superwoman over here. Like, it was just such a beautiful, beautiful experience. And it was like, I don't have to take on other people's energies. I don't have to choose the defensive. I don't have to choose, to let my anxiety take over. Like, I have a choice in this. I have the power to do so. And it's honestly changed my life. This was 2 years ago now. And I've been choosing again over and over when I get into these situations or these conflicts or confrontations or whatever. And it's literally given me all my power back. And I can't thank that book enough, even though I thought she was crazy at the beginning. But it's a powerful thing when you decide to take control and create the situation you would rather create, rather than giving into what it may seem it should be, or is going in that direction or whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I love how you're saying, okay, Gabby Bernstein, almost like, what would Jesus do?
Yeah, exactly. And it's when you're in this journey, whether it be mental health or you're struggling through, a divorce situation or anything like that, you're in this dark place and you can't really, you can, but I'm deciding that I'm not going to look outside of myself. So when you're reading these books from these experts or their experiences, it's like, okay, they're doing something differently and this is the life that they're getting. So why don't I try something different for a while, because what I'm doing isn't working. So you got to kind of step back sometimes and be like, what would I rather?
Yeah.
What would I rather happen instead of what's going on that I just can't seem to, I feel like I'm trapped in.
Yeah.
So.
Can you expand a little bit on how you were getting offended? Because I think a lot of people deal with this and then they stop. So expand a little bit on that, and then why you kept going. Like, what pushed you to keep?
Yeah, so I was offended because I was in the thick of it. I created internally a prison of my own making. It was so dark. I was, getting up every day, hating the world, hating myself, blaming others for my situation, blaming the world for why I'm hurting so deeply, why I'm so emotional, why, all the things. So when I'm reading the choose something else, you get to decide, I'm like, why the heck would I be choosing this? Like, you're in it, I'm looking at the book and I'm just trying to think, why would I choose this? Why would I choose this over and over again? So I was offended because it was almost like I was getting smacked in the face, like a wake-up call. Like, hello, you are creating this. And I didn't want to believe that. I didn't want to think that I was the reason for my misery. I wasn't taking action. I wasn't changing the situation. I was accepting it for what it was, or what I thought it was. So I was so taken aback by that. And I had to go back and read it again and take from it and put it into the practical and see for myself. I'm watching people, live their most beautiful lives, and I'm over here suffering. I'm over here taking it into account into a whole different way. My reality is so different from others, but why is it different from others? Why am I living in this darkness where everybody else seems to be having the time of their lives? So that's why I pushed through, because I was like, maybe there's something in this. Maybe there's something to this. What if I could get my power back? What if I could create a beautiful, vibrant, transform my life into something where I'm not going through each day in this anxious prison of mine, in this depressive state. So that's why I pushed through. I was like, I got to give this a chance. I got to see if I can do this too. If other people are doing it, then why can't I? So that's why I kept going. I was like, I'll give it a shot. Prove you're wrong.
What made you, or what happened where you decided to grab that book? Does somebody recommend it to you? Were you actively looking for help, mental, emotional help?
So I actually have all of Gabby Bernstein's books now. The first book that I ever picked up, which was recommended by a counselor, was The 4 Agreements by Don Miguel Ruiz, which is a phenomenal book. I always say that book saved my life, and I write about it in the book in complete detail. But that was my entry into self-development. And I heard about Gabby Bernstein actually on a YouTube thing. I was at a friend's house, and it was like a little ad for her workshop. And then she said something, and I can't remember exactly what it was, but it triggered me to look into her. I was like, what was she saying? And because I already dabbled a little bit into the 4 Agreements, I was like, what do other authors have to say? And the whole reason I started this journey was I was in my early 20s. I had just got my diagnosis of being severely anxious with depression. And for me, it was almost, not to sound dramatic, but it felt like a death sentence. And in the book, I talk about it being like you're defining yourself at that. I was no longer Kristy. I was now somebody who had anxiety, who had a mental illness. And And I played into that diagnosis so well that I let it take over. And I was isolating myself. I was taking, missing out on things that with friends. I was getting anxious and agitated with my friends. I was pushing everybody away from myself. I wasn't eating healthy. I wasn't taking care of myself. I was going down a deep rabbit hole. So when I found these books, I thought, okay, there's a couple things I could do here. I could stay in this deep, dark place, which I did for probably 5 to 6 years, and allow it to run my life. Or I could take some action here and see what else is out there. I could figure out what was actually going on instead of suppressing any feeling, instead of trying to numb it out, instead of trying to hide myself away from the world, because it would be better than, going to the grocery store was so taxing. I was so worried that I was going to say something embarrassing or make a fool of myself in front of the grocery store cashier. It was that sort of thing that I was like, I'm not even living here. I'm not living. I'm existing. And at best, surviving. And when you think about your life, this one and only precious life, you don't want to just exist. You want to fully and vibrantly go out and live it. So everything that I was doing wasn't working, obviously. So I was looking for something to try, something to not, at first it was to ease the pain, but then it turned into a healing journey. It turned into, instead of burying these feelings and burying this trauma or burying whatever I'm feeling right now, let's heal this. Let's really dig deep here, bring it up to the surface and figure out, why am I feeling this way, instead of just taking on, that's just who I am now. This is who I am. I wanted to rewrite the story. I wasn't gonna play the extra in this movie. I wanted to be the main character again. I wanted to take back and be the star of the show. And it took a lot. It took so much to make that choice, because it was a choice. I could, sit at home, have a pity party, because that's what I did. Woe is me. And I know that seems really harsh, but that's what I was doing. I was allowing the anxiety to take over and fester and make it, write the script for me. And I just got fed up one day, and I was like, my friends are like living this beautiful life. So I have a choice. I can keep going down the road that I'm going, or I can take some advice from people who have been through it and back out on the other side. So that's kind of how it led to moving into this self-development journey and picking up that book and many, many others since then. Oh, I can't hear you, Sabrina.
Thank you. I know that there are women who are listening right now who are like, cool. I'm really happy for you, Kristy, and all of your books that you're reading. But it doesn't work for me. What would be some tangible things that somebody could do, according to like maybe something you've done? So something as simple as reading a book, although I totally get it, might seem like, I don't know about that.
Yeah. And of course,
do you have anything that you could say as far as, hey, this was one or two things that I actually tangibly did to kind of help me on this journey?
Yeah, there's so many things. And the book was just the beginning, like reading books and getting information, putting it into practice. It was all, steps in the journey. There are so many things that I've done, trial and error, that work, that don't work, that resonated, that, weren't for me. And that's the great thing about it being a journey, is because it's yours and you get to mold it and shift it and make it your own. What I would suggest is starting point is starting with, in the book, we define, me and my co-author, we define what self-care means to us. And my chapter, self-care means to me something that feels so damn good and brings you joy. What is that for you? Start there. Because when you can move from this anxious, depressive state into a feeling of joy, to feeling good in the body, and I mean that in the body. So what gives you butterflies? What, makes your heart flutter and get you excited? Where are you feeling that? What makes you want to get up and get out and enjoy the day? That can be, for me, I found a new love for the outdoors. I love hiking. I love kayaking. I love camping. For others, it could be exploring new food, new restaurants, new, starting conversations with random people. That was one of the things that I literally made myself do, is go into places and ask people how they were, genuinely asking how they were, starting conversation about their day, just talking to people, because that made me so scared. That was one of my fears of going out into the world, was talking to people and being worried about embarrassing myself, or, having to worry about that conversation like 3 months down the road. Just getting yourself out there and starting small. For somebody with anxiety who's in the thick of it, getting up to brush your teeth or to take a shower can be really daunting, or can be really, it feels like a chore. But if you can start small, brushing your teeth in the morning, I know it sounds gross, you don't brush your teeth, but it's true. When you're in the thick of it and your anxiety is taking over, it can be so hard. So if all you do in the morning is get up and go and brush your teeth, 2 minutes, anybody can do anything for 2 minutes. I promise you. Go out, and go into your bathroom, brush your teeth. Maybe the next day you add splashing water on your face. Maybe the next day you take a shower. Maybe the next day you pick out a cute outfit or something that's comfortable. Maybe the next day you try a new recipe that looks good, something that's a little bit more healthier. It doesn't have to be healthy. Maybe you just make a meal for yourself. Starting somewhere small and starting to get into a new routine. Because with anxiety, it's so easy to slip into a comfort zone. It's so easy to stay where you feel safe. And the problem with that is then you get stagnant. Then there's no growth. You don't see the light at the end of the tunnel because you're not moving towards the light. You're staying in the deep, dark cave, and you do not want to come out. So if you can start to take these little micro movements, these little steps to doing things that feel good, to doing things that are towards your physical health, your self-care, then that is, for me, it was monumental, because I didn't want to take care of myself. I didn't think I was worth it. I didn't want to go out into the world because I didn't think anybody wanted to, I was so concerned with what other people were thinking about me that I didn't want to expose myself to them. But when you gently start to make yourself do the things that are hard, starting small, starting big, whatever you feel that you can do that day, start there. And if you don't do the big thing that you think of, or you don't, today's not the day you take a shower, have grace with yourself. Be kind to yourself. It's okay to take it in little micro doses, in little baby steps. And it doesn't have to be a book. It can look like anything for you. But those 2 key points are: do what feels good in the body, what feels good for your mind, what feels good at the end of the day. You're like, man, I can't wait to do that again. That was so fun. And then, choose something that brings you joy. Because joy is an elevated emotion that will actually bring you up away from that dark space. So that would be my advice.
Fantastic. Those were perfect. And I love the idea of just doing a little bit every single day.
I remember being in such a dark place. I was in university and I had a 1-bedroom apartment, and I would be so overwhelmed with the work that I had to do, and I didn't want to do any of it. I skipped classes because I was like, I'm not even going to pass anyway. Like all the stories that you had yourself. And then that day I was like, hey, I'm going to go brush my teeth. I'm going to wash my face. I'm going to go for a walk just around the block, not a long one, just like, or maybe even to the end of the road and back, like just something to get my body moving. And the funny thing is about when you start to do that, you kind of get into this momentum, and then you're like, okay, well, maybe I'll just do this. And then maybe I'll do this after that. So once you kind of start, it's almost like you don't stop. Yeah. And I don't want to confuse this with productivity, because people say, well, then I have to be productive in a day. It's not about being productive. It's about getting yourself into a state of being that's more elevated into than that anxious or that depressive state. That's the goal, is to get you in that elevated emotion. It's not about productivity. It's not about, if I do all these things, then at the end of the day, I can feel satisfied and accomplished. Some people might do that, especially as a person with anxiety. But the goal that you can focus on is getting into a greater state of being. Because when you get there, then you're like, this feels really good. And then you want more of it. And then you start to move more and more towards that light.
Totally makes sense. And I love that you are acknowledging the productivity, because that's my niche. And that's actually one of the things that I teach is anybody can do anything for 2 minutes. So when you're trying to like get stuff done in your world, just put the timer on for 2 minutes and just work on that one thing. And then what happens is sometimes that's all you needed to kickstart it, and you end up doing the whole project. It's kind of like a little trick that you can do. So I love that you're putting that little asterisk on there to give people grace. I think that's great. What's the number one lesson that you've learned about life?
The number one lesson, I think, because I've gone through what I've gone through, and I don't even think I want to start there, because I can recognize what anxiety looks like because I've experienced it. I can see when people, going back to the confrontation, or people having a bad day and taking it out on you, and especially this like whole thing through COVID, is to have massive compassion for everyone, no matter what they're going through, no matter what they say to you. Because we don't know what they're going through. And I say this because I masked my anxiety and my depression for years. When I started writing this book and I started telling people about this, they're like, you are the happiest person we know. Like, you don't have anxiety. Like, you've got to be kidding. That is why it's such a dangerous illness, because it can be masked so well. And my number one takeaway going through all of this is to be kind to one another, have compassion, because you don't know. The spectrum of mental health goes from, this end to this end. We don't know what that looks like for anybody. And it's just makes it easier and I don't mean to make life easy, like you have to like make life easier for everyone. But what I'm saying is you could be the change in someone's day if you're just kind to somebody. Yeah. If you could make someone's day who's going through something, whether it be, just that day or years worth of, built up trauma or anxiety or whatever it may be the kind person, be the one who smiles and asks the person how they are, and, be the light, keep shining brightly no matter what happens. And choosing again, but that compassion and that kindness towards somebody can really make a difference. And I feel like we need so much more of that in our world today. So that would be my number one kind of lesson that I've learned throughout all of this, is just be kind to one another, and be the light, be the light for everybody.
Yeah. Did you ever watch 13 Reasons Why?
I haven't yet. It's so funny that you mentioned that, because I've had 2 people tell me about it this week. I think it's a sign I need to go and watch it.
What you just said is very similar. So I read that book when I was in elementary school.
Oh, wow.
And the series just came out. But that book, I probably read it when I was in 5th grade, changed my life. I couldn't even believe that they were made it a series, and I watched it immediately because it impacted me so greatly when I was younger. And it's about suicide. It's about depression. And a slew about, I mean, they cover everything in that book / series. But the idea is exactly what you just said. So you never know what people are dealing with. And after reading that, I mean, I've always been a nice person, but after reading that book, I have gone out of my way to make sure to hold grace for other people and to never assume that people are sad, mad, irritated, or whatever at me versus just at their situation or where they are in life right now. And I think that when you show up just a little more kind, or like you said, I think you said with love, you might have said, show up in love.
Yeah, to have compassion and be the light.
Yeah.
Be the light, yeah.
It makes a world of difference for sure. You know, speaking of depression, anxiety, and all the negative self-talk that kind of goes along with that, I'd like to get your take on when a person is good enough.
This is something that I've been struggled with, especially going back to productivity, coming back to, watching my friends get the jobs and have the opportunities that they want. It took me a long time to get where I'm at. And now I know, not now that I think, now I know I was born worthy. I was born good enough. We don't have to achieve, miraculous things. We don't have to do anything to be good enough. We are good enough right now in this moment without doing anything outside of ourselves. And this was a heck of a journey to get here, because being someone with that anxiety and the depression and kind of battling each other, I was like, okay, I did this. My to-do lists were forever long. Like, I got the straight A's. I graduated university on the dean's honor list. Like, I got all, the whatever. And I still didn't believe that I was good enough. And I'm like, why? Because I was basing it on external things. I was basing it on what I was achieving or who I knew or what jobs I could get. And then I realized, I was like, I don't have to do anything to be good enough. I don't have to do anything. I was born good enough. I was born worthy. And it took me a long time to get there, but I know that as a fact, that we are all born worthy. We are all born good enough. There's nothing to do, nothing to fix. We are good enough now, right here. Oh, you're muted again, I think.
What would you wish for?
My wish, I mean, tons of stuff. But my wish for is that everyone who's going through something that's, feeling the struggle, feeling the overwhelm, to not take life so seriously. And I'm young, like I'm only 29, and I know if there's some people out there like looking at me like, you're just a baby, you don't what you're talking about. But I know when I was going through school and I was going through all the things and even writing this book and deadlines and stuff, like I found myself and catching myself getting caught up in, oh my gosh, like this is how it has to be, or I'm getting 30, I should be getting married, get a house, like all the things that you have pressure to come across it in, through the steps and the years of life. And it's just, now I realize it's just not that serious. Like and even in my 29 years, so when I got diagnosed at 19 or 20, in this last decade, I spent so much of my time stressed out, overwhelmed, in tears, making myself sick to my stomach, freaking out about everything from big to small. And it was just, there were so many people having so much more fun than me. There's so many people enjoying all the little things, having great experiences. And I was, just one track mind. And I was taking life way too seriously. We're meant to, and I don't even want to say fail. We're meant to take detours and get redirected. Mm-hmm. We're meant to, hit those bumps in the roads and be like, oh, this path isn't for me. I'm being redirected here. I'm so glad that I found this out, because now I can regroup and turn it around. And it doesn't need to be so stressful. It doesn't need to be a struggle. It can be fun. It can be this adventure that's like, oh my gosh, I did this one time. It didn't work out, but guess what happened because of that? Guess what I know now? My wish is that people who are struggling, and people who are not even who people are struggling, who are, killing it out there, life isn't so serious. Go out and enjoy it. Go out and create what you want. Go out and bring whatever it is you want in, a family, a house, like beautiful vacations, all the toys, whatever it is. It's not so cut and dry. And you get to choose. You get to make it fun. You get to make it this beautiful adventure. That's what my wish would be.
Awesome. I want to take a moment to thank those that are watching us live. Thank you so much for being here and for hanging out with us. Those of you that are watching on the replay, so maybe a little later in the day or tomorrow or the week after, make sure you hashtag replay wherever you are so that it notifies us and we can send you some love. But I want to ask Kristy, while I have you here, tell us what you do exactly. I know you have a book coming out. Mm-hmm. I know you do yoga, but tell us more about what you do, who you help, and where people can find you.
Yes. So yoga, like I said, started out as an exercise, but it's become such a tool for me through my mental health journey. And there's so many aspects of it that have guided me into wonderful things and opportunities. And it can be an outlet for so many things. So my goal with it is just to move your body and, defy those limits that you set for yourself. Physically, like I was saying, mentally, or maybe the ones that you didn't even set for yourself, but you've been listening to what others have said so much that you've taken them on. And I always start with yoga or a practice because it kind of evolves into something entirely, whatever that may be. It's just a beautiful kind of like a starting point, I always say. Recently, with the development of our book, I started mindset coaching, showing people and giving them the tools and, sharing my experiences that I have lived through to show what's possible, that you don't have to be in the dark place. You can create a life beyond your wildest dreams, and that diagnosis doesn't define you. It's just, it becomes this small little insignificant part of you that, it's something we can I don't even want to say work with, because it's not like you're working with it, for lack of better words, like moving through it, I guess. And then I also am writing a book, Becoming the Butterfly, with my co-author, Kylie Beaudry. This book outlines our entire experience. Hers is a little bit different from mine. And this is just all of our tools, all of our offerings to allow you to pick and choose what works for you, what resonates, and find, those little stepping stones that you can start moving towards the light. We made the book really interactive so that it's not just like you're droning on reading words on a piece of paper, but there's exercises that you can apply. There's pages where you can do different gratitude, coloring. There's all sorts of things, all sorts of little activities that you can do to start getting everything in motion to, moving out of that anxiety or anxious or depressive state. The book will be hitting the shelves December 15th. It's called Becoming a Butterfly Again. And you can find me at my DefyingLeeFit.com or DefyingLee Fit on Instagram and Facebook.
Beautiful. What are your dreams for your business?
My dreams for my business, I have so many. Right now, my goal is just to help and reach out to so many people, anybody that is struggling wherever they are on this spectrum of mental health, and help and guide them to a life that is of their own making, taking back of their control, empowering them to see that, I was there too, but we don't have to stay there. Like it's just such a small part of our lives that we can push and break down that wall and move into something so much greater than ourselves. So that's my wish, is to help people and show people what is possible for their lives, even when they get that diagnosis of a mental health.
Yeah, definitely. I think that's the key right there. Why do you do what you do?
I do what I do because I felt so alone. I felt so ashamed. I felt, even though I isolated myself, I felt isolated from the rest of the world. I felt like I was the only one going through this, and I couldn't have been more wrong, but I struggled in silence by myself for, like I said, probably about 5 years. And I don't want anybody to have to go through this alone. I don't want anybody to feel like they're the only ones, and that there's help out there, whether it be through me or all of the other resources, the beautiful resources that I've been connected with over the years. It's not something that I would wish upon anybody to go through alone. And I just want to be a light. I want to share with people what's possible.
Fantastic. I so appreciate you hanging out.
Thank you so much for having me. This has been so much fun.
Such a great story and journey. And I love that you are speaking out on it, because I think that so many individuals can completely resonate with you. But there's a nervousness, that they have, where they don't necessarily feel comfortable talking with somebody, or maybe they're downplaying it, or could even be people in their family that aren't taking it seriously. So then they're kind of stuck. So I think that you really gave some really awesome tips that individuals can take on their own, that are simple, even as small as just grabbing a book or some of the other things that you mentioned, to really help them navigate this and really help bring it to a head where they can start working on themselves and working on that area of their life that's really causing them some darkness and some struggle.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Any closing thoughts before we wrap up?
Just thank you so much for taking the time to listen. And I hope that if it's not my book or if it's another resource, I hope that this sheds a little light on the fact that you don't have to go alone, and it isn't an end all be all. So thank you for giving us this space to come and chat on here. It's beautiful.
Of course. So those of you listening live, if you resonated with Kristy and all the goodness that she shared today, make sure you connect with her on her website, DefyingLeeFit.com, and also on her social media. There are links wherever you are watching this. There are probably links somewhere in the description, so you can click on those. We love to connect people here on this platform in order to make sure that we are all rising together. Thank you so much for joining us today on Her Version. This community is expanding every single day and is filled with females who are striving to do better than they did yesterday. For those of you that are new to this podcast and like content like this, make sure you hit that subscribe button, follow, like, and share. If you have an amazing story to share of struggle to triumph, make sure to reach out to me at hernation.life. I am your host, Sabrina Victoria, and I'm so grateful to be here sharing a platform that allows people to share their truth and inspire others